speaking, Mr. Nixon?
Yes, my sister.
Thank you. Would you tell me your full name?
Nixon.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon. Go ahead.
I am Quinton's sister. I've been with him my whole life. He's 3 years older than me. It's mostly seemed like I've been the big sister my whole life. But through this experience, he has shown me strength, power, and I won't take that from him. I lost a child last year, so I can't say, oh, I do know how that feels. And I think the word of the day is accountability. Everybody was where they should have been in this situation. Everything happened the way it should have never happened in this situation. However, I do serve a merciful God. I do believe he is full of mercies. And I do believe that the truth showed itself, and what I ask for is just for grace. That's all. And whatever you do decide, I have to be okay with it. And I too will be here for him, do anything forever. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon. Mr. Nixon, do you choose to make a allocution or a statement at this time? You're not required to. You may if you want to, but that's your choice.
To Miss Westover's family, I'm not a monster, but I do ask for forgiveness. I don't. Nothing I can say is gonna help how you guys feel. Please forgive me. To her daughter, I ask for forgiveness. To her mother, I ask for forgiveness. To her sister, I ask for forgiveness. It was me against them. To my mother and my family, I ask for forgiveness.
Forgive me, son.
I have to take responsibility for what the court is holding me responsible for. But it's not. It didn't happen the way that they said it happened. I'm not a monster.
Anything else, sir?
No, ma'am.
All right, having been convicted of the offenses, the bond that has been previously set is revoked. You're remanded to the Summit County Jail, starting with your notice of your duty to enroll as a violent offender pursuant to 290341 of the Ohio Revised Code. You've been convicted of or pled guilty to a qualifying violent offender offense as defined in 290341 of the Ohio Revised Code. You are required to enroll in the violent offender database personally with the sheriff of the county in which you reside 10 days after being sentenced, if you're not sentenced to a prison term. If you were sentenced to a prison term, you must enroll in the database personally with the sheriff of the county in which you reside 10 days after being released from jail. If you're an out-of-state offender, you must enroll in the database personally with the sheriff of the county in which you reside or occupy a dwelling within 10 days of either one, residing in or occupying a dwelling in Ohio or for more than 3 consecutive days, or 2, residing in or occupying a dwelling in Ohio for an aggregate period in a calendar year of 14 days or more. You're required to provide the sheriff with your full name and any aliases you use, your residence address, social security number, any driver's license number or commercial driver's license number or state identification card number issued to you. Information regarding the offense for which you've been convicted of or pled guilty, the name and address of any place where you are employed, the name and address of any school or institution of higher education you attend, the license plate number of each vehicle owned or operated by you or registered in your name, the vehicle identification number of each vehicle, and the description of each vehicle. A description of any scars, tattoos, or other distinguishing marks on your person. You're required to provide the sheriff fingerprints and palm prints, and the sheriff will also obtain a photograph of you at the time of enrollment. After the date of initial enrollment, you're required to re-enroll annually. You must update and/or amend any of the information described above that has changed and provide any additional information requested at the county sheriff's office within 10 days of the anniversary of the calendar date on which you are initially enrolled. If you change your residence address during the 10-year enrollment period, you shall provide written notice of that change to the sheriff with whom you most recently enrolled and to the sheriff in the county in which you intend to reside within 3 business days of the change of address. You're required to comply with all the above described requirements for a period of 10 years unless your sentencing court determines otherwise. Since your expected address is located in Summit County, you shall enroll in person no later than 10 days after release or sentencing if you're not subject to incarceration with the county sheriff office located at 205 East Crozier Street, Akron, Ohio 44311. You're required to sign this form, not that you necessarily have to agree with it, just that I read it to you in open court. And one of the signed copies is for you to keep.
You're not pleading guilty. This is.
All right, I'm ready to proceed now. So, Mr. Nixon, you know, the person that's sitting here before me today, I think relatively intelligent, well-spoken, well thought out, is a totally different person that existed in 2022. So whatever led you down the path, A, to associate with these people, but B, down the path of methamphetamine, is clearly why you're sitting here today. I don't know how many times we have to have someone shot and killed in our community before people realize that gun violence has so many unintended consequences, not just to put out the life of the person or injure the person that the gun is being pointed at, but the trickle-down effect of all of those other people that are affected by this, your children, your mother, your sister, Miss Westover's family, her children, her grandchildren, all of those things. And the combination of drugs and guns in this community and staying up for days and all the paranoia that comes with the use of those drugs just baffles me. I believe that you do have sincere remorse. I do believe that having sat in jail for 2 years and reading through the discovery and not necessarily remembering all the events of that night due to your drug-fueled paranoia, that you have convinced yourself that the testimony you gave in this courtroom is truthful. It does not jive, it does not correspond, it is not corroborated by the physical evidence. That being said, I find based on the facts and circumstances of this case in consideration of the relevant sentencing factors, applying the minimum sanction I've determined will protect the public and punish the offender without imposing an unnecessary burden on state or local resources. As to 2206-2276, count 1, improper handling of a firearm in a motor vehicle, I'm imposing 18 months in the Ohio Department of Corrections. I'm not imposing any fines, and the court will take judgment against you for the cost of this prosecution. I'm also ordering, pursuant to specification 1 to count 1, that the Riley defense RAK 47 be forfeited. As to 2209-3102, the state of Ohio having chose to proceed with sentencing on count 1, murder and unclassified felony, I'm imposing a sentence of life in prison with the eligibility of parole after 15 years. Specification 1 to count 1, specification 1 to count 2, I'm imposing a mandatory prison term of 3 years on each count, and pursuant to 2929-14B1G, those offenses will run consecutive and not concurrent to each other and be served prior to and consecutive with the life sentence that you're facing. I'm using my discretion to not impose a sentence on specification 1 to count 3, and I'm imposing a 36-month prison sentence on count 5. I am running both cases concurrent to each other, and I am running count 5 concurrent to count 1 for a total sentence of 21 years to life in the Ohio Department of Corrections. Upon completing your prison sentence, as to the tampering, you're facing 2 years of discretionary post-release control, which is supervision by the Adult Parole Authority. As to being granted parole, as to the murder charge, that will be left up completely to the Adult Parole Board, and they will decide when and if you are released from prison, or if you, after serving 21 years, or if you're required to serve the balance of your life in the Ohio Department of Corrections. Again, I'm not imposing any fines on this case, but we will take judgment in the amount of the cost to prosecute this case. Your credit for time served in the Summit County Jail will be calculated, and that will be credited towards your sentence that you are to begin serving. You'll be remanded to the Ohio Department of Corrections. Lastly, Mr. Nixon, you are entitled to appeal these convictions. If you want to appeal that, you must appeal within 30 days of today's date. If you want an attorney appointed for you because you cannot afford to hire an attorney to appeal these convictions, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand those appellate rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you wish to appeal?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you wish to have the court appoint you counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we will do that, and I will reach out and find an attorney qualified to handle this level of an offense, and it will be included in the journal entry, and then that attorney will be in contact with you through the Ohio Department of Corrections. Anything else on behalf of the state of Ohio?
Just one thing, Your Honor, and I may have missed it. I heard the PRC for the improper.
Oh, yeah, no, so it's 2 years discretionary on both the improper and the tampering. I apologize. But based on the fact that he is subject to the parole board's determination, that would run concurrent with any parole that he's offered or granted by the parole board.
That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anything else?
The system's rigged, man, it's time to break free.